Thank you for joining me, your host, Scott, on the Sales versus Marketing podcast, where we speak with sales, marketing, and business leaders. Today, I'm sitting down with Heather Combs, who is the Chief Revenue Officer for 3Pillar Global. Now, 3Pillar Global is a global software development firm. They've helped brands like National Geographic, PBS, Park Mobile, Equinox, to name a few really strong names that you would know to build more revenue-generating digital products. So in her role at 3Pillar, Heather sits at the intersection of sales and marketing, and she's helped propel the company through a period of sustained growth. Right now, she oversees marketing, business development, sales, operations, and over 900 people globally. So she is integral in creating, crafting, and executing, implementing revenue acceleration strategies that are currently driving 3Pillars continued year-over-year double-digit growth. So very impressive what 3Pillars doing, what Heather's doing. Now, to give you a little bit of background about Heather before I pass it over to her, before joining 3Pillar, Heather was the Chief Business Development Officer at the HR Certification Institute. She's responsible for overall revenue strategy, led product management, strategic partnerships, and sales orgs. Prior to HRCI, she was Chief Business Development Officer at Aronson and Chief Sales Officer at Hanover Research. She spent 13 years at CEB, a corporate executive board, where she led project management, sales, strategic partnerships initiatives. She was named Member of the Year by the Institute for Excellence in Sales in 2019 and is on the Institute for Excellence in Sales, IES, Executive Leadership Advisory Board. She's been named top 25 women leaders in tech services and consulting by the Software Report, and she's been published in Fox Business News, which is massively impressive. So she always speaks on stage about sales, leadership, tech, women in leadership positions, in sales leadership positions. She's a native of Texas. She has 5 daughters, which are currently at home with her. So she's taking a little bit of time, and I appreciate it to chat with me. She holds a Master's of Public Service Administration and a BS in Political Science and Psychology from Texas A&M. She's very passionate about, obviously, sales, revenue, business operations, women in corporate leadership, and a variety of other topics. So I'll let Heather take it away. Give us a little bit of a background about how you have such an impressive resume across a ton of organizations. You've been senior for a while now in various executives. Where did you come from? What was your your starting point?
Well, thanks, Scott. If somebody walked around reading that all of the time, I would understand why I don't sleep very often. It sounds like so much when it's all together. And really, the job in the office I'm much better at than the one at home with all these little girls who are out of school at the moment. So definitely, let's talk about the career. The short story is I came up through politics. I landed in Washington, D.C., working for a congressman, and then after my master's degree, returned to the area with the Points of Light organization. So I thought I was going to do politics and the nonprofit space. And while I was in that, I quickly discovered that you can't pay school loans and rent in Washington, D.C. on a nonprofit salary. So it led me to the consulting track, which in the 90s was the big way for people out of graduate school to go into one of the big consulting organizations. And I joined the corporate executive board as they were going public from the advisory board. So it was this 400 people that were carved out and sent to launch CEB into what became this mammoth organization that was acquired by Gartner. And by joining a growth company on that curve, I just had a tremendous set of opportunities ahead of me. I was able to move through the organization in all kinds of different roles as they were rapidly growing. That gave me a really well-rounded background in business from all kinds of angles.
That's really, so that was that was what really defined and moved and gave your career momentum, that aligning with CEB while they were on such a high growth. So after CEB, you went through several different roles. You sort of dabbled in product management, sales, BD. What made you fall in love with sales?
Well, in all of those roles, I think the truth is I think of myself as building businesses. Whether you're just determining the pricing strategy or the contracting methodology or putting into place a new market for your business, you can put those all under the umbrella of revenue or sales and marketing, but really it's about building the organization and generating the profitability that it needs to grow. There are all kinds of ways that you can help organizations in that. And of course, the actual sales of the organization and the brand building that is in marketing is just happens to be where my passion is. Like, I love that aspect of it.
And then, so is that what led you to what you're doing now? Like, just like the passion for building a brand, aligning that, and basically driving revenue through that brand and like that higher level strategy. That's because I know you had a few different roles in between CEB, I think, and 3Pillar.
That's right. So in those years between CEB and now at 3Pillar, where I've been for the last 3.5 or so years, I was helping organizations either as a W-2 or as a 1099 to really achieve their goals. So I was going in and out of organizations that had a large goal ahead of them, and they were trying to find their path forward, whether that was at Hanover launching into the commercial space, or at HRCI, which had just split and gone their own way from SHRM and needed to really build a brand in the market separate from their SHRM affiliation. Those were the kinds of projects I was taking on. I was asked into 3Pillar initially as they were going through an inflection point of really having been a startup and needing to build into a corporate entity. So they were 9-ish years old or so when I joined, and that they were kind of going on this rocket ship to the right of needing to make sure that they had their place carved out in the market. We now have, strong industry strategy, a strong brand in the market, and that needed to be built. And I fell in love with the organization. It's just a great place to work.
And when you started with 3Pillar, did you go to, like, immediately into that CRO role, or did you start somewhere else and then move into that?
I did. I started with them as a consultant for the first several months, helping them think through building out this industry strategy. And as I fell in love with the organization and they asked if I would stay on in the full-time role as CRO, I said yes. And I've been here ever since. We have just actually exited our initial private equity company and taken on major capital. We closed earlier this week. And so I think you'll see us grow even more in the years ahead.
And can you give me a little bit of just a background? We were chatting a little bit before we started this, but I want people to understand the context of what 3Pillar does. Like, what problem are they solving? Why do you love working there?
Well, 3Pillar builds breakthrough software products that power digital businesses. So it's some of the most exciting space to be in. We are helping companies figure out what their voice strategy is. So if you ask Alexa a question for several of our clients, you'll get an answer that we helped them program. If you are buying furniture or building a room onto your house, you might use our 3D modeling capability. Or if you're paying to park as you run those errands and you hit one button on your phone to do so, you're touching the kinds of things we make. So we're in that space that is really changing the way people live, work, and play through their digital applications. In some cases, they're doing so in such a ubiquitous space, you don't even realize you're using a product. The technology just surrounds you in that way. And so I think it's exciting. There's something always interesting coming through in a project. The client base that we work with is unbelievable. So it's a lot of fun for me.
No, I appreciate that. And I think that my biggest eye opener was a really great talking point that we were discussing. It was the fact that these companies that I sort of want to frame it up because I don't know, maybe I'm just naive, so I don't know. But a lot of these companies don't have all the staff on hand, and they don't have the different components of a software development team. They do have some, but what 3Pillar is really offering and providing, and the pain point they're solving, is they can sort of backfill those different spots as a company tries to develop this thing or that thing for their customer base. So I thought that was very interesting. And I like the names that I mentioned before, like National Geo, PBS. Park Mobile, Equinox, and I'm sure there's many, many more. Those are large household names. So like what you're doing right now is very impressive. I didn't realize it existed to this extent for that level of customer.
Right. I think that there's a term in the technology space that's product engineering, is what you can think of it as. The shortcut might be outsourced engineering. But it is when companies reach out to a professional services firm like ours to help them really bring to life a vision that they have of something they can bring to the market, but that in-house they might not have the capability to do so. So one of our largest clients is an insurance company, and so you imagine that no one there probably has the skills to build some kind of technology product that you or I might use every day on our phones, but they might have a fairly wide team that helps them keep their website running, their mobile app running. So they bring in these specialized skills in order to really take it to the next level on the customer interfacing side of their products.
Yeah, no, that's it's very valuable. I'm very impressed that you found yourself in this position like through this massive growth curve. So it seems like I don't know if you find the growth or you facilitate the growth, but it seems like you're always in a really good spot, which is a career lesson. So I think that's an important takeaway, just at a high level. You do want to make sure that you're aligning with the right company. I think you're doing that now, and you've done it before. Um, I want to speak, unless you want to go a little bit more into 3Pillar, it's your choice. But I do want to speak about something that you're very passionate about, and that I think I would love to cover, just because I don't have enough expertise in it personally. Because unfortunately, I am not a woman, and although I'm in sales leadership, I can't speak to it. So I want to hear your thoughts on women in leadership, women in sales leadership. I think that there's obviously, I think that in leadership in general, we're not seeing the same variation or lack of strong female leaders as we see in sales leadership. I don't know too many female really strong sales leaders. Not even strong, like and at all. I don't see a lot of female sales leaders. I don't see a lot of females in sales. I don't see a lot of women as as account executives, as SDRs. I don't see that. And maybe it's just the environment that I'm in, because I work for a very legacy type of industry. But let me, like, maybe you can fill me in. Like, am I totally off base? Like, is the sales world changing? Are we seeing more, I guess, across the board, and maybe in San Francisco and emerging tech? Are we seeing more women getting into sales, which is be an amazing thing? Or are we still sort of struggling in that?
I hope it's improving, and I certainly encourage women to lean into all of the great benefits there are in the sales career field. I think that women have moved quite a bit from the place where they didn't feel seen and heard to the place where they were mostly seen and heard in what I think of as like female audiences. So you saw women leading companies that were based in fashion or food production. But now women are really executives at all types of companies across all industries. And so I hope women are making progress here, and they're seeing the opportunity and they're feeling it regardless of what type of company or industry that they're in.
So I think that in general, I have seen more women in leadership positions outside of like the types of industries that you just mentioned, so like fashion and food and whatnot. But I still think we have a long ways to go. I remember reading an article, Forbes named it was like the Forbes top 100 tech leaders or something like that. And I think there was like one woman on the list, and there was a big outcry of like like you screwed up, like you effed up, Forbes, or I think it was Forbes. And if it wasn't, I apologize. But there, like, that is still, unfortunately, I find very, very symbolic of what a tech leader is. And unfortunately, I think that women are permeating a little bit more, and they're having more of these really, really strong roles, which is a good thing, because we can speak about what women bring to the table that men lack, and there's a certain amount of empathy and communication and just a strategy that I've found personally working with women, that I find is a really strong driver for successful business, that I don't think men bring to the table to the same extent in general. And these are all obviously all generalities. but I really do believe that women stepping into leadership roles is an amazing thing, regardless of industry, obviously. But why is sales such like a hot topic? Like why have I not seen a ton of like women, female sales leaders? Even when I'm looking for guests for this podcast, like I get 100 VP sales, directors, CROs, CMOs, all coming at me. They're mostly guys. Like, I don't know if that's just who wants to put themselves out there and jump on a podcast, or if that's just sort of like an indicator of the industry. But maybe,
Well, remind me to send you a list, because I know a lot of fantastic women in these roles. So I'll introduce you to a few.
I would love.
But I do think you're right. I think that sales and marketing, and frankly, lots of leadership roles, but certainly in sales and marketing, it requires a certain level of confidence and willingness to throw your own hat in the ring. You have to take that opportunity you see in front of you and jump in, even when you don't feel ready. So the research is fantastic that no one is ever ready for the next job they take. But men will put themselves out there if they are just fractionally prepared, that they're experienced in the field, where women will wait until they have all of the skill sets listed, experience in each of them, and feel like they have mastery. And so they won't jump into career fields or positions, or try to work the path to promotion until they feel more than adequately prepared, whereas men will jump forward. And so I really encourage women, throw your hat in the ring, raise your hand, say you're willing to take it, and accept that nobody is ready on day one.
That's really, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. I have no idea why. So, but even like thinking about like when I've applied for jobs in the past, I've always with 100% certainty known that I can eventually do that job. But yeah, for sure, there's things on that list of requirements. Like, God forbid, most of those job postings are just like boilerplate, copied over, and the hiring manager doesn't even know what's on that job rec. But like, I'd say there's a large majority of things like, yeah, okay, well, like, I've never done it before, but I'm sure I could figure it out kind of mentality when you're going in to apply for a job. And it's funny that that's what's limiting women from like actually stepping into those next levels in their career.
I think women sometimes also hold themselves back artificially, imagining forward the obstacles they might hit. And so one in the industry that you hear a lot is sales and marketing both require a significant amount of travel. It can be less or more depending on the industry and what you're selling or marketing. But for most of them, they're not office jobs. And so women will say, well, someday I want to have kids, so I'm not going to take that job. And one, I would say to women, don't plan for a tomorrow that hasn't happened yet. You can take the job, change careers at any point. So if you were in your 20s thinking about sales, but thinking someday I don't want to travel, take the job now. Someday you don't have to travel. And then for the women who are looking down the path of still needing to travel, it's really possible. I mean, I have 5 girls and I make it work. I have a fantastic partner. He doesn't have to travel with his job. And so he's there. We have a live-in au pair. One of my biggest pieces of advice is to outsource anything you can. So if you have the means, find the things you don't love and have someone else do them. I don't, I have people who cut the grass in the summer, for example, but find those ways that you have time and capacity to continue doing what you love. It really doesn't have to be the self-fulfilling prophecy that you might think early on of saying, well, I'm not going to be able to do X, so I'm not going to do it now.
And I guess that if there isn't that thought in a man's head of, he's not thinking like, I'm going to stay home with the kids. And this is, again, a generality, but when I jump into jobs, especially before, I also have an amazing partner at home now, and we're settling down and planning a life together. So maybe that is more of a consideration, the lack of traveling, so we can sort of share duties as we grow our family. But when I was jumping into jobs, it was never like, I was never thinking, oh, I'm going to have to stay home with the kids one day. And it's not something I consciously thought of. It just wasn't on my mind at all. Like, it just wasn't, so that could be another inhibitor for someone who's looking to step into that kind of, role that could be international travel, a lot of responsibility, those high level executive sales roles.
Absolutely. And I think women will hold themselves back from giving it a shot and figuring out how they can make it succeed rather than saying
Yeah.
that they just aren't going to go there. Um, I
Can I
really
go
go
ahead?
ahead.
Sorry. No, I had one more point that I wanted to bring up that is really important for me because I don't think it gets discussed enough. And I'm whenever I speak about women leadership, I'm very conscious of what I'm saying because I don't want to offend somebody by speaking in terms of what I've seen the landscape of sales leadership to be. Because I am a firm believer that more women should be in this. And you mentioned you had a list, and I think that would be great to like go through and sort of speak to some of these success stories. And I've also worked with other female leaders, but what I don't think is the answer is when women feel they need to act like men. I think that that's the wrong message, and I have not seen that message broadcasted, but I've seen that kind of personality, sort of
Mhm.
the need to replace a man as a woman. But I don't think that's the answer, and I think that's the wrong message. And I think that as a strong female leader, you have to double down on what you do best. And I don't think that's, acting all like, like the, what's the word, toxic masculinity. You don't have to emulate that to step into a sales role. And I think that unfortunately, that's something that a lot of people feel if they're going to sort of hold that position.
I, I love that you brought this up. I couldn't agree with you more that the answer to having more women in leadership roles is not to have women act like men so that now we have all the same again. I
Mm-hmm.
think whether it's men and women or diversity of all other kinds, whether that's age or socioeconomic or
Mm-hmm.
cultural background or international experiences, every time we bring different thinking to the table, the end result gets better. And so rather than having everyone strive to act like the male counterpart, the individual they see ahead of them who's been successful, let's each bring our unique experiences and our unique abilities to the table to make the end goal more accessible from all kinds of angles. And women in particular, I mean, we represent half of the population.
Mm-hmm.
We are more than half of the buying power in the economy. And so having those voices in the purchasing decisions and the way products are built only will make the outcome better. So I think you're absolutely right. I encourage women not to feel like they have to not be themselves. The flip side of that discussion is that men, in particular, have to come to respect the differences and the capability at the table as well. So the biggest place I see the problem there is usually on communication style. Men will be very forward, very aggressive. They will cut people off in conversations in order to make their point. And women, by either social training or nature or whatever it is, will tend to wait until someone completes a thought and then therefore look either less passionate or less confident in their answer. So those are kinds of things like the women have to own what they're good at and do more of it. And then the men need to really accept the difference is okay.
So how do you change that perception? And I think that as sales and revenue evolves from less of an art to more of a science, because I do believe in like activity based management. I believe that coaching is coaching to behaviors and pain points in the rep, not just pipeline review. All these things that are sort of bringing people up as individuals and require a little bit more than just an aggressive, like do more without telling the person how to do it approach to sales management. I think that those all lend cadence to somebody who can be a little bit more thoughtful, empathetic, self-aware. I think that traditional sales, like the concept of traditional salespeople, is broken, and I think that broken concept is is associated with a more aggressive management style. And that's why I think that as we see some, hopefully we see some companies that are more forward thinking in how they look at sales and they look at what drives successful sales organizations and marketing as well. But I think sales is a little bit more broken than marketing. I would hope that opens up more of an intellectual sales leader as opposed to like a spreadsheet taskmaster type sales leader that unfortunately did exist and still exists some in some places, but I think we're seeing that less and less. So
Well, here at 3Pillar, we do a lot of work on empowering women in leadership and in technology in particular. So I happen to get to stand in front of a parade of an amazing group of women who have built a market force called Empower Her, where we take professional skill building to our women and to the community in order to help empower women to, especially women engineers, to join the technology and stay in the STEM fields. So I really have this like awesome spot to sit in with it. But in that women in leadership element, I think that you see that women can accomplish all kinds of things in other methodologies. We have had at times an all-female engineering team, so led by the engagement manager all the way through the engineering talent, who was then purchased. That team was put together and worked with a female buyer at a major media company. So it was a female buyer buying an all-female team of engineers working together to produce a product. And it's sort of legend around here that they came together and what they produced. But I think that those are the instances that even organizations should think about, that I think our female buyers even get excited about seeing all of the women that we have in technology. So it just differentiates us in the market, and it really helps attract amazing talent to the organization.
I like that a lot. It's smart because like if you think about all the other groups that we use to sell to, like we sell, if we're trying to target a certain culture, we usually bring somebody in who is closely associated with that culture that we're trying to sell to, say if it's on a global level, because there is already a level of trust that is built between those two individuals. So why would that not also carry over to if you're working with a female buyer, right? If there's language barriers between a sales rep and a customer, you're going to have a very hard time trying to close that deal. So that's why you're going to send somebody who can speak a native language, or all these little nuances of sales that we already do when we're selling globally, right? But I think that to build an organization that understands that power is important. But not a lot of organizations, I think, have such an emphasis on this. So, as somebody who's young in their career, a woman who's trying to navigate the sales force, or just her future career, say she knows that she has to sort of put herself out there, she has to apply for those jobs. She's going to learn a lot of the skills. She has to sort of lean in, but she doesn't have that support. Where would she go if she doesn't have it in her own organization?
There are all kinds of wonderful organizations out there that will help mentor and encourage and support women to grow in those successes. So I always encourage women, have a great set of mentors. And as you have the opportunity, be a mentor to others. I think there are benefits on both sides. I participate in all types of, like, I'm on the advisory council of an organization called STEM for Her. And the goal of the organization is to help middle school and high school girls stay excited about and ready for careers in technology and in the STEM fields. And in that, I meet all kinds of amazing, successful, powerful women from their career fields, and they make me better, and they provide opportunity. And I encourage other women to find those outlets. So find organizations that are full of women. If you're in the greater DC area, reach out to me and I'll plug you in with our Empower Her movement. If you are in a couple of other major cities, have great Wonder Women dinners. Fortune runs Most Powerful Women, which has got an amazing newsletter that comes with it that sort of tells you all about what's going on. But there are lots of tips and tricks that women can do to find their people and feel encouraged, supported, and trained up in their career fields.
I think that's very important, because like I've done that for myself, for my own career, for just looking for mentor groups and whatnot. But to understand that there is this sort of gap, this gender gap in tech leadership, sales leadership, I think it's important to align with people that can sort of get your foot in the door, or give you the right mentorship that can sort of help your career forward. So that's something, like I always advise aligning with mentors regardless, but I've never really thought of it from that lens. That you have to go into these specific groups that will really drive your career understanding your situation, more than agnostic of industry, right? Agnostic of what you're actually doing in your 9 to 5. Like they understand like the struggles that you're dealing with from like an actual gender perspective. Like that's huge, and that can probably be so empowering for people that are really like go-getters trying to get to the next level in their career, and they just feel like they don't have anybody. So I don't know if a lot of women who are in sales or in tech or just looking to grow their career know that these groups exist. But if they don't, I would definitely suggest you go seek these out. Maybe even like at the end of this, I'm gonna get the best contact info for you, so people can understand where or how to reach out to you. Maybe just reach out to you to get an idea of what to look for in a mentorship group, so that they're pointed in the right direction too.
Absolutely, would be happy to help that way. And I encourage women who have made it through the trail they've blazed to the place that they are to turn around and help others, so that our daughters don't experience any headwinds that we did coming up through this. So I think that for those women that are coming up, seek support and encouragement and connections and networking and mentorship from women who've been there before. And women, if you are in the position of being a hiring manager or a mentor yourself, turn around and help out those that are seeking our support.
You mentioned something, and we sort of spoke about this a little bit. Um, Outside of just from this is sort of like internally motivated, feeling comfortable going into careers and going to new jobs, and that's something that's already going to help your own career as somebody who wants to increase or go to the next level in the workforce as a woman, obviously. Do you find other major challenges that you've experienced in your career that you would say people should be on the lookout for, or how to navigate those challenges? Maybe just like a couple examples of things that you sort of had to work through.
I think that a couple of them that are probably too obvious, maybe overly cliche, is that early on in my career, of course, we as women were spoken to in a different way. You might be I sold initially to lawyers, for example. And so you might be in a legal office and you might be getting called honey or sweetie and those things don't happen anymore. Certainly the world has changed a great deal, luckily. I certainly think also as you climb through your career, perhaps people are less condescending as they might've been in that moment. But I even said in the moment that it was happening, is like, use that for good. If you can sort of turn away, just let them set low expectations for you and then exceed all of it in the moment. Just jump over that hurdle and then impress the audience, so that the person who called you sweetie as you walked in is the one that looks foolish afterwards.
Yeah.
I think that the other place to make sure that you're just pressing through whatever discomfort you have is that there are lots of meeting rooms you're going to be the only woman in. And so accepting that you look different, that you're probably a different height of most of the people in the room, that you might be wearing something different than most of the people in the room, and sit in that discomfort as not something that holds you back, but rather that you find exciting and empowering. You say, I'm not the last that will be here. I just happen to be the first. Or today I'm the only, but next time I have the opportunity to bring someone into the room, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't look like this.
I love that perspective. That's really that's powerful, and it's a really healthy perspective to look at it that way. I think that like when you're in that position, I think that one more point that I would like to add on to that is that prepare yourself for that. Understand the reality that maybe in sales and tech and in certain industries, there probably won't be as many women as other industries. So if you sort of prepare yourself mentally, don't let that sidetrack how incredible you are in the moment. And that's only something that will ever happen if you aren't prepared mentally for that situation that you're sort of stepping into.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One thing, so I wanted to just ask a couple more. They're a little bit more vanilla questions, just about like lessons you've learned over your career. But I kind of just want to give you the floor for anything that we haven't discussed or that I haven't sort of brought up. in terms of leadership, tech leadership, women in tech or sales leadership. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss?
I was thinking about the question that I get around like best advice I would give. So you asked early in the conversation about how did I wind up in leadership early on, and then how have I had leadership roles, and differentiating just heading sales and marketing to really leading a business and growing a business. I would encourage those folks who are interested in going to the executive ranks to make sure the thing they are investing in is understanding the business as a whole. I call it business acumen, but making sure they can read a balance sheet, making sure they understand what the other departments are doing and what their important element that they provide to the organization is. There can't be someone in an executive room who doesn't understand the larger part of the organization that is about profitability or about the cost structure or about how our talent is recruited and cultivated. You really need to know every part of the business and to be able to understand a conversation all the way down to its most technical, financial aspects to really sit there. And so that's what I would encourage people is like, if you want into the leadership roles, don't get so siloed that you can't see the big picture.
Very good advice. Is that actually that sort of dovetails into some of the closing questions? Because I always ask like, what is like the one piece of advice you tell your 16-year-old self, 15-year-old self? That's very, very technical business advice, and I appreciate it, and I agree with you. Is there more high level like learning or career advice that you give to your younger self that would sort of help accelerate to where you were today?
Say yes. Say when you get asked to do crazy things, you get offered to do a 2-year stint in the London office, say yes. You get asked to lead an initiative to launch the conference strategy for an organization, say yes. You get asked onto a different team in a different department, or you get asked to lead an advisory council, say yes. Find all of the places that you can say yes, the people you'll meet, the experiences you'll get, the rounding of your skill set will be invaluable, no matter how timid you are on the front end.
Yeah, that's great advice. So, I've always found that people that are, high achievers, they have mentors, they have books, podcasts, audibles, and I'm sure there's more than one. But what is one mentor, one person, or one learning source that you could recommend people go and check out? Maybe something that you're into now.
So I'm a voracious reader, although that's a little bit of a cheat. I really listen now to almost all of my books on audiobook so that I can move at the same time, whether it's driving or on the train up to New York or standing in an airport waiting on my flight, I can consume another book. And so I encourage people to read and to learn and to expand themselves. I am currently in a little bit of a place where I'm reading and listening to a bunch of books and podcasts on the concept of there being too much noise. So how do you slow down to go fast? And I can all kinds of them. One's called Noise. One is called Stillness is Key. There's a great book called Rest. There's a Dan Pink book called When that's all about the timing, the importance of timing. That are all super interesting and really help us think through how distracted we are. And so that's what I personally am studying at the moment. But I have a long list of books I love if anybody wants to reach out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so that's a great again a great set. You must have you must have a sixth sense because you're basically helping me go into my next questions. So how do somebody reach out to you? Would it be LinkedIn, email? What's the best way?
Yes, I like to think of myself as super approachable and accessible. So if you see me out in the market, come say hi. And if you want to reach out before then, LinkedIn is the best. And I'm Heather D. Combs on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.com/in/Heather D. Combs. Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so thank you. I appreciate that. That was a really, really good chat. Is there anything else you wanted to close up with? Because that's exactly what I wanted to get out of this. I just wanted to really dive into into women in leadership. And I think that we really, really did a good job of covering that and gave hopefully people that were listening some great ideas and a little bit of inspiration to sort of take their careers to the next level.
Yeah, I would just say thanks for having me. Thanks for leaning into and really pressing on the conversation and helping women achieve their career goals and us working on some gender balance. I love sales and marketing. Happy to come back and talk anytime on a more specific topic or to join the cause however you're fighting it. But thank you so much for being on the front lines.
No, my pleasure. I'm glad that you were able to speak to it, because I don't know as much about you on this topic at all, obviously. And I love the topic. I know it's an issue, but I hate speaking about something when I'm not educated enough on it myself. So I appreciate you coming on and sort of giving us a little bit of insight and context as to, like, your background. But thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So as always, this has been another episode of the Sales versus Marketing podcast. Thank you, Heather, for joining. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. You can rate our podcast any rating as long as it includes 5 stars. You can download this podcast wherever you can download podcasts, and you can also watch it on YouTube. As always, have a great day, have a productive week, and we will speak again soon. Bye now.